Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. Welcome to Fridays. Yes, it is Friday all day. Friday's Crypto Blast, where myself and the awesome Cam O'Connor from Institutional Fi will give you the ultimate roundup of what's been going on in crypto markets and what to look out for. As we always say, it's crypto with a tie on. I say try because Fartcoin does get a mention occasionally, for my sanity. We try Cam tries to keep this focused on the more professional side of crypto. But before he does, let's get the legals out of the way. So as usual, nothing discussed on this Spaces session constitute trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ, Institutional Fi, myself, Ryan Paisley, or indeed the marvelous Cam O'Connor. Hello, Cam.
Feel like I can't live up to that introduction.
Well, I disagree, mate. I think you do yourself a disservice there. I think you are brilliant. There you go.
Oh, well, that's lovely.
That's an
I'll buy you a
endorsement.
beer.
Well, I love it when a plan comes together.
Oh,
No,
well, there we go.
the drink, but the drink helps.
Yeah.
What's been
Oh,
going on, my
lovely.
dear friend?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, it's beautiful weather here in the UK.
Oh, it's all,
We'll definitely, yeah, no, we can't complain at this.
no, definitely.
Almost a week of it as well. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly that.
Um, I'm looking forward to this crypto update. 'Cause there's a few different announcements, and one particularly for Coinbase, which is not one announcement, but like four different announcements, which just sends you on an emotional roller coaster. So, well, I'm sure it is making Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, even bolder than he already is. We'll move on. We'll move on. So we'll start off with the crypto market cap and the update. So starting with BTC. Looking at Wednesday's close to Thursday's open, there was little movement with BTC opening up yesterday, down just 0.3%. Now, if we look at Bitcoin, it tested the lows of Tuesday yesterday, surpassing the lows just by $40 to around $101,380. BTC did manage to reclaim the sell-off by close of play, with the price of BTC relatively unchanged, sat at $103,700. So yeah, very, very positive strength there for Bitcoin managing to hold those numbers with very, very little movement when we're looking at, the close to the open
Just on
compared to several days. Go on.
just on that, because funny enough, Bitcoin was brought up with myself and the FTX guys just now, because we were kind of like wondering, and this is why the timing of this show is great, because I've got my question ready. Obviously being a complete crypto noob or just kind of just uninformed, it felt like to me and also the FTX guys that potentially like the ingredients were there in terms of good news coming out, again, adoption on things like stable coins and all that stuff. General risk on appetite being there in terms of, risk assets and stuff this week. It felt like all the ingredients were there for new highs, and we just kind of, it seemed like just no momentum to push higher. Is there any kind of reason behind that in your opinion, or is it just one of those things?
One of the only like macro factors I think we could take into consideration is the F13 filings that we're getting from major institutional players with their balance holdings of BTC, or whether that be directly or via Bitcoin ETFs. I was going to mention the Wisconsin one in the news roundup, but we can mention it now because they were the first. The state of Wisconsin's investment board were the first state pension fund to invest in Bitcoin in Q1 of last year. And they actually just reported yesterday that they sold their entire position
Oh, really?
in BlackRock's iShares Bitcoin Trust. So I'm not sure whether this is having a direct impact on price, or what's preventing it from being able to break over that 105 mark. But it's certainly showing maybe the outlook for 2025 isn't as clear cut as people think.
Do you know what?
Obviously these are Q1 reporting,
Yeah.
so slightly delayed data, and we don't know exactly what their positions are, this moment in time, but it may have a factor.
Do you know what? Because I know you were just going through your market recap. I'm going to save my question on this for the end. I'm like a good boy.
Oh,
So
ah.
carry on, and I'll save my question to the end.
Oh, Ian, lucky Ian, just sat there wagging his, yeah,
Yeah,
wagging
exactly, drooling.
it. Yeah, that's exactly the
Thanks,
image
mate.
I've got in my head
Thanks
right
for
now.
comparing
You're
me to
welcome.
the bulldog. Yeah, thanks. Well, I've been so nice to you earlier on as well.
Yeah, you were so nice, and here I am
Oh,
being, oh, I don't know, he's a cute puppy. That's
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah. So carry on. I'll save the questions to the
Right,
end.
well,
Boy.
all right, we'll keep going with the little market update. Ethereum remained strong throughout the week after its accelerated 42% move that we saw the beginning half of last week to its 200-day moving average. We sit just below that still, finding a little bit of support up here, and ETH remains constructive, and its price is roughly, it's just changed since the last time I wrote this about 40 minutes ago, $2,615. If we look down the market cap list in no particular order to the top alts, Solana is trading at $171, XRP is at $2.41, and BNB is trading at $655. You'll note that if you were very keen and you love the price updates, 48 hours ago when we did the last crypto blast, the prices are actually down quite considerably for Solana's part, and down a healthy bit for XRP. BNB is relatively flat over the last 48 hours. And if we can kind of shed more light on this in the
Yeah.
altcoin sector, Total 2 and Total 3, these are basically little indexes that you can find on TradingView, which take out Bitcoin, take out Ethereum, take out stable coins, and then you get like a cleaner picture of the entire altcoin market cap. Well, they showed a really strong pullback to support on the downside, but just to show you how great is, how much volume is actually in Total 3, it added 20 billion this morning already to the digital asset market. So it's quite a lot of
And so,
liquidity floating around.
and are these indexes tradable then, or is it just a charting mechanism?
No, no, this is a charting mechanism.
Right. It does feel like there's an ETF on the way there.
Yeah, I mean, they might be missing the trick, but with one of the major players adding Trump coin to the balance sheet,
Yeah.
I'm
Oh, yeah.
I'm
No,
not sure. You're probably right on the fact that they're probably going to shovel these meme coins into an index and allow
I
you
wouldn't
to,
be surprised.
unfortunately, be able to put it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, but you wouldn't want to be the person trying to keep track of the basket of what you need in there, would you? All right,
Yeah,
we've just got to buy another couple of billion of podgy penguins or whatever it is.
Podgy penguins is brilliant. I might change my status for that for the day. That is
The
hilarious.
IQ coin coming soon with podgy penguins.
Yeah. Oh man, well that's funny. Yeah, you wouldn't. It reminds me of the meme actually. Where it's got the board, the black board, and you can write stuff on it.
Yes.
It's like, here's an
Yeah.
idea. Could you imagine being the guy
Admin
pitching that to
board.
the board? I've
Yeah.
got an idea for our treasury fund.
Yeah. I'm scared. This best not show this
Let's
episode
not let's
to the
not go
board.
that.
I
Yeah,
bring
let's
on
not.
move
Yeah,
on.
no. We'll keep this one close.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we'll move on to the news recaps over the last 24 hours, and again, we'll start off with Coinbase. So Coinbase dropped around 7% on a customer breach. SEC probe into US numbers as well. So to detail into a few of these different stories, the Securities and Exchange Commission questioned Coinbase's 2021 claim that it had more than 100 million verified users. This is the key port, verified, so under KYC in an ongoing investigation. And later as well, Coinbase stock dips after news broke of a cyber attack that exposed customer data and ongoing in the after the ongoing SEC investigation announcement. So honestly, they just got hit
It was
essentially
like,
a double whammy of bad
yeah,
news.
it was a bit of a shit sandwich, except for instead of it being shit in the middle, it was like shit wrapped round shit, wasn't it? Because it was like, yay, we're launching on the S&P, yeah, brilliant, we're going to be including the S&P 500, shall I say? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, big hack, oh, we might have lied on our numbers, oh, feels like there's something else.
Yeah,
But just kind of to quantify, kind of contextualize this, you know, TradFi people start, really hammering Coinbase and, oh, yeah, I told you it was a scam. They've got a fake number of clients and stuff like that. Just be mindful that I believe it was last year. Michael Brown's listening in, so he's probably nodding already because he knows where I'm going with this. Wells Fargo are currently in a massive scandal because they've done exactly that. And this is one of like the biggest banks in the world. And they you don't get more TradFi than Wells Fargo. They used to have stagecoaches running gold around the Wild West. So look, they're all at it basically.
Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Well, sort of. If they did lie, well, now they have custody of BlackRock's money for all their IBITs. So maybe it was for the better of the company that that they may have misconstrued some numbers earlier in 2021 to be the custodian of all the pretty
And
much all
again,
of the ETFs alive on the market right now.
for what you and like you raised a really important point, right? And you kind of highlighted it as well, which is really good. This is verified users. So these are users that have gone through AML or KYC, etc., etc. So potentially it's just that there was a load of that have been miscounted or double counted or whatever, but some that were counted as verified but really weren't verified. Because as well, this remember that the KYC environment has changed quite considerably over like right, if you've had an account at Coinbase for like 5 years, like the KYC that you've had to go through has changed probably about 5 times. So potentially, like again, playing devil's advocate, potentially it's just a miscount because some people were verified, before on KYC and that wasn't, allocated to these numbers or vice versa. There's a lot of play, again, trying to, without, and I promise you, we're not sponsored by Coinbase, but I do kind of think that maybe there's a bit much made out of this story than potentially there really is.
We're not sponsored by Coinbase, but if they would like to,
Oh
please
yeah,
reach out.
yeah. I know. I'll get my knee pads on. Oh God, Ryan. Oh God.
Oh no!
Move
Oh
on.
dear!
Move
Oh
on.
no! Okay, quickly. You do raise a point to where they have an opportunity here to blame it on the intern who has been fired since then. Um,
Exactly that.
a,
Exactly that.
a number misconstrued. Oh yeah, that was the intern's fault. He
Yeah.
has been let go. Or
Yeah. Yeah.
she.
Exactly.
Um,
Carry the one.
right. So we'll move on. More Coinbase news. Unfortunately, if you're not a fan of the exchange, so Coinbase eyes acquisition spree following its already $2.9 billion Durbit deal. Or Deribit, however you want to say it. Coinbase will continue seeking merger and acquisition opportunities after its record $2.9 billion Durbit purchase, CEO Brian Armstrong said and confirmed. So following along with, we are always looking at M&A opportunities. Armstrong told Bloomberg Television, highlighting the company's robust $9.9 billion balance sheet. The Durbit acquisition, crypto's largest to date, consists of around $700 million in cash and 11 million Coinbase shares, positioning the exchange to expand into the lucrative derivatives market. Coin shares surged on this news over 30% from May, boosted by the acquisition news and the company's upcoming historic inclusion into the S&P 500 index on May 19th. Interestingly, on the position, well, I'm not sure if this stands true, provided with the sell-off that they had yesterday, but they were going to enter in at like 129. So they weren't even bottom in the S&P 500.
No.
They were going to enter in quite heavy into that, as definitely not maybe a key competitor, but yeah, definitely sizable within that.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so hats off to the Coinbase guys.
Again, we're not
So we kind
sponsored.
of touched.
We're not sponsored. I promise. But again, if they do want
Yeah,
to,
we're not
if they do
sponsored.
want to buy PIQ, I can write them a good price.
Yeah. So we kind of, I won't recap the, I won't go over the story again, but we'll just do a brief recap that the state of Wisconsin Investment Board, which managed the retirement funds, offloaded its shares in BlackRock's iShares Bitcoin Trust. They had over 6 million IBIT shares, which was at a total of over $355 million at today's prices. Just to know, in case you think all is lost and that they're completely exiting Bitcoin as a whole, that I mean, as far as the 13th filing shows, they still hold a sizable position in MSTR. It's around $50 million if we convert it into prices of today. So they're not entirely out of exposure to BTC, but certainly they've closed their position in IBITs, well, BlackRock's IBIT.
As if by magic, that question that I was kind of holding on to, you've just answered it. Because my question was going to be, so does this mean they've completely pulled out of Bitcoin then? Because that would be a bit of a turnaround. Because obviously it was quite, it was made headlines that they were even going to be investing in Bitcoin. And so how long ago was it when they first bought into that? Do we know? Can you remember?
Q1 of last year. So literally the first quarter of trading.
So this a bit, so they've literally just, that's really weird. So they've kind of gone through these hoops to be able to buy Bitcoin, buy into Bitcoin, and then they've dropped it. Has there been some kind of legislation change or some kind of like shake up in terms of who's in power there? Maybe I don't know. It's one to maybe look into. But it's an odd one because we're seeing so many other states and that round the country kind of really kind of fighting to get Bitcoin on the balance sheet, and then you've got potentially the first mover is getting out to an extent anyway.
Well, on that, they entered with 164 million, they exited with 355.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, I wouldn't mind being a pound behind it.
So they didn't do a terrible job, and maybe this is kind of just again, we say you never know exactly the date that they decided to offload these. Presumably it was staggered as well, but if it was around the beginning of the Trump tariff war, it could have just then been taking risk off the table, and reevaluate. And it is a pension fund after all.
Yeah, no, and pension funds by their nature shouldn't really be taking that much risk.
So whether we see, in their Q2 or Q3 data down the lines, saying the filings that they've added again, we'll see. I just hope they kind of get rid of that MSTR position, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, no,
anyway.
That's my back of my head is like there's so many better ways to play that, especially now where oh god, yeah. But anyway,
you give me an idea. Maybe they're getting ready to load into 21 Capital.
Do you know what? That's exactly what I was just thinking. Or one of the other ways of getting custody.
Exactly.
We've said this many times before now. There's now so many regulated ways to get Bitcoin on your balance sheet. Again, you could do it through 21 Capital or something like that, which offers a better play if that's your decision than MicroStrategy. I'm never going to just say strategy. I can't say it. I've got to say MicroStrategy. But also, like we've said before, you got custodian banks like Franklin Templeton, right? They're like I'm going to jinx it. Obviously, there's going to be a bank run on them now, but they are kind of one of the safest, custodian banks out there, and you can buy Bitcoin through them now. This is where like the big guys go and store their money and save their money. Like we're talking countries. So I just can't get my head around why anyone would be buying strategy or MicroStrategy. It's really odd, but I think there's so many purer plays out there.
Yeah, exactly. We'll move on because I've got some opinions which I probably don't want to share.
Right, we're going to do a crypto blast from the pub in a couple of weeks' time. We'll get
That's
those
exactly it.
Cam then.
He's going to lubricate me first and then get me to spill the beans. Right, we'll move on quickly. So Abu Dhabi's sovereign wealth fund snapped up another 490 shares of IBIT in Q1, according to its latest 13F filings. Its purchase brought the total IBIT shares to well over 8.2 million as of March 31st, worth around $512 million at current prices. I do believe that's even higher as of when this was reported. So, Abu Dhabi, adding, was it basically over half a yard there? That's not a small amount of money. I'm sure we'll start to see more developments on that going forward.
Definitely.
World Liberty Financial, a decentralized finance project backed by the Trump family, if you've heard of it, has passed a governance proposal to conduct a test airdrop of its USD1 stablecoin to eligible WorldFi token holders. The proposal approved on May the 14th with around 99.96% approval rate. I don't know why they added that in there, just to show, pretty much everyone, bar one person maybe, voted that they don't want to receive free money. So
you voted against that.
I'm not entirely sure, but someone did apparently.
What I will say from obviously now, it's been quite a steep learning curve, like starting a SaaS platform, etc. And I love all of my subscribers dearly, but you kind of realize that some people do need to be spoon-fed instructions. So potentially someone's just clicked the wrong button when they were voting.
You make a very good point. That does look. There's room for error on that one for 100%.
Exactly that.
So they aim to distribute a small, yet to be determined, keyword there, amount of USD1 to all current worldwide token holders. So yeah, they've not told anybody how much USD1 they're going to give them. They might just drop them for a fraction of a cent.
This stinks. Right? This stinks is just kind of a carrot to try and get people to buy more, more of them, right? Oh,
Yeah,
if you're a holder of our token, we'll give you a little Brucey bonus. All right, well, how much are you going to give us? Well, you got to buy them first.
yeah. You got to buy them, hold them. If you're eligible, we'll send you it.
Yeah, we might send you some.
Yeah. Is it that, well, maybe it's something that we should get into on a different call and maybe and talk about it, like title it something else. But I
Oh,
mean, with airdrops, I've had airdrops, over $700 of just holding something. They can be quite lucrative, but I have a feeling maybe World Liberty Financial aren't going to be distributing out a nice wad of cash for the weekend.
I mate, you're right. Or someone like that, you wouldn't be surprised if they kind of did some kind of lottery. So it's like, oh, just random account holders will get some like certain chunky airdrops, and it just so happens that Donald Trump Jr. has got one of those accounts and gets paid out.
Yeah, I was going to say it's everyone who's invited to the dinner.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. There you go.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, exactly. Oh god.
FTX plans to distribute over $5 billion to creditors starting May the 30th, as part of its second distribution under its Chapter 11 bankruptcy plan. Eligible creditors who completed pre-distribution requirements, including KYC verification and onboarding with distribution providers like BitGo and Kraken, will receive funds within 1 to 3 business days of the 30th. Yeah, so this follows FTX recovery of over $16 billion to address the $11.2 billion in claims, with 98% of creditors, those with the claims under 50K or less, expected to receive 118% of their allowed claims. Now, that does sound great. Oh, hold on a minute, I'm going to receive, a little bit extra than what I claimed, 18% more on top of
Yeah.
my losses. But here's the catch. The process has sparked a little bit of debate, as payouts are based on November 2022 crypto prices, where Bitcoin reached as low as
What?
$16,000.
What?
So, yeah,
You joking?
no, not at all.
So they've
Not in the
literally gone,
slightest.
okay, yeah, we'll do this, but then they've scrolled back through the chart and find what price can we use to benchmark this against. Is that what they've done?
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Oh
It
my
sounds like it.
days.
The crash that they caused, BTC to spike that low, arguably. Um, yeah, that's exactly what they've chosen to do. So yeah, like you can absolutely give it to them if they
Yeah.
feel
So,
slightly
well,
shortchanged.
yeah, I wonder where that kind of that spread's going. Someone's making a decent
Yeah,
amount of spread on that. Oh bloody hell.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure some of the lawyers are sat quite happy
Yeah,
right now.
yeah, yeah. No. Oh, yeah. But this is probably what's happened, right? They're like, okay, well, a room full of lawyers. They're like, okay, well, where should? Yeah, we've got this number of crypto. It's worth X gazillion. Okay, well, we need to give them back. Okay, well, what price should we give them back at? Well, if we give them back at this lower price, there's more money for us. Oh, yeah, let's do that then. That's exactly what's happened, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
Without
We can
knowing.
make it sound like it's a large amount of money. We can give them 118% of what they lost. Brilliant. Yeah. All right.
Jeez.
Right. So will the FTX debacle ever end? Well, it doesn't seem like it.
No.
So we'll move on. MasterCard teams up with MoonPay to launch stablecoin powered payment cards. This is quite a big story. So
Yeah,
MasterCard
I
has
think
partnered
so.
with MoonPay, yeah, to launch a stablecoin powered payment card, enabling users to spend stablecoins like USDC and USDT at over 150 million merchants worldwide. When we look at numbers, the cards are supported by MoonPay's Iron infrastructure that they acquired back in March of this year, automatically convert stablecoins to fiat currencies at the point of sale, ensuring seamless transactions. This initiative targets businesses, fintechs, consumers, offering efficient cross-border payments and payouts for creditors as well. The partnership builds on MasterCard's prior crypto collaborations with OKX and Circle, aiming to bridge crypto and traditional finance despite ongoing regulatory uncertainties, particularly in the US, where stablecoin legislation remains stalled, as it were, especially following all the sagas with the Genesis Act that we've been talking about quite
Yeah.
closely. But quite a large story there.
Right. So I'm glad you said that because when I read this headline this morning, or last night, whenever it was, I can't even remember. I was sitting there thinking, this is potentially massive, and it's massive because of the reasons we've spoken about many times now on these shows, which is you're opening up the adoption to people that wouldn't necessarily know they're even using crypto. Like we use the QR code as like a perfect example. No fucking you had to really use a QR code before lockdown. Then you're forced to use QR codes when you're ordering stuff in, like when you're sitting 2 meters away from people and all that stuff. My mum and my dad now, my nan can use a QR code now without even realizing they're doing it. And by getting these stable coins to be able to part of your day-to-day, buying and selling using your credit card or whatever, kind of, we said it this week, didn't we, with Meta as well? Like, people are going to be using stable coins via Meta without even realizing they're doing it. And once you crack that nut, you take away like the fear factor, because there's a lot of people out there, well, I'd say the vast majority of people out there are still fearful of crypto because of all the horror stories and all the meme coins and all that stuff. Whereas if you've got it part of your MasterCard, you're going to be using it with with zero fear whatsoever. And I think once and Cam, me and you have said this a couple of times now, once you crack that nut, we're not saying this isn't pro any one particular coin, but just in terms of the mass adoption of crypto as a whole, I think it couldn't be a better story, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like we've covered stable coins and not only their use cases but legislation, things that can stop it being passed quite closely and quite well. And this is just another episode, like you said. If you don't have the fear in how you can spend them, all of a sudden just receiving them keeps you on board and into into the ecosystem itself. So
exactly,
it looks like the worries of spending them and being able to send them, those barriers are being broken.
Yeah.
And now it's just the ability to receive stable coins. So I feel like that's the next step here.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, my friend.
So one of the last stories today, just regarding a Bitcoin mining company called Bitdeer. They reported their Q1 earnings. So they reported a revenue drop of around 41% year on year, and as net income surges on derivative gains. The Nasdaq listed mining firm recorded around $70.1 million in total revenue in the first quarter of 2025, down 41.3%. Year on year. So according to the latest earnings report released on Thursday, much of the revenue came from its self-mining business, which generated around $37.2 million in the first quarter, down 23% year on year. Again, we have to factor in the Bitcoin mining, the Bitcoin halving that happened in April of last year. So these numbers are actually quite impressive when you consider a reduction of 50% was automatically on the books for these companies, and they had to salvage the difference. So in the earnings report, they published that a statement saying this quarter marked the continued execution of what they're calling Seal Miner roadmap. They went on to say that we have an energized hash rate of 3.7 and 0.5 on their Seal Miner A1 and A2 miners, so respectively bringing our self-mining hash rate to around 12.4. So these are the key numbers here. We'll break it down very simply. They reported a energized hash rate of 12.4, so their ability to mine Bitcoin, and but at the end of April. Now the company said that it aims to increase that energized hash rate to 40 by the end of October this year. So if you're confused on the company that we're talking about, that is Bitdeer. Forgot the ticker and I'm not going to guess it. But yeah, just go have a look for that, because if they can make true on that promise, obviously there's you have to follow that mining company closely. But that is a good increase on Bitcoin that they're able to bring in to the company.
Nice.
Now there was also, I don't have the story in front of me as per, but there was further developments in the XRP case, which feels like it's just never ending.
Yeah.
Now, the last time that we talked about it, XRP and the SEC basically filed to the courts to say, hey, we want to drop these cases. XRP, so Ripple, agreed to pay X amount of money and just leave it be. It turns out the judge is not going to let it drop that easily, and I don't blame her, because essentially, and I'm going to briefly summarize, and we'll come up with a more clearer rundown of this story probably next week. the judge has just gone, you're telling me the last 5 years have been an absolute waste, directed to the SEC. So I can't blame her for not wanting to just, completely just dismiss it and go, yeah, sure, whatever you've just come up to, we'll just agree to it.
Yeah.
They're going to try to get down to the bottom of this, and it's not looking good for the SEC.
It's
That's
an
for sure.
absolute shambles, let's be honest.
Yeah, no,
And I
absolutely.
think that's being polite, to be quite frank.
Well, yeah, I think just to make sure you don't paint a target on your back, this is the old SEC that you're referring
Yeah,
to.
again,
It's not
that's
the new SEC.
yeah. And again, I think you can kind of now make a serious case of why this has been a great improvement. I know Trump's, there's been people critical and said that the SEC has dropped too fast, too quickly. They're like kind of oversight. But when you look at things that are going on with like Ripple and stuff, some of it was probably a bit kind of malicious of how they were going over after certain crypto sectors or certain crypto companies and stuff. Yes, there's been nightmares. Yeah, like no one's disagreeing. FTX was an absolute shit show. There should have been, that should have been picked up and whatnot. Especially when you got like the CEO of CME Group calling it like a year before it happened, saying that their risk management is non-existent. But then you got a case like this with the SEC and XRP, and you're like, yeah, they're just. Maybe they were just uninformed. The SEC at the time were so uninformed, and they were making bad choices. They were going after the wrong people. Again, if a good game warden understands what poachers are doing, right? And it just felt like the SEC didn't even have a clue about the industry when they were going after these people. That's the vibe I've always had, anyway.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And that's going to be it from me today.
Oh, well, fantastic. I think the value you are bringing to the table, Cam, is phenomenal. And that's why, I know we started, these were like 15 minutes to begin with. They're going on for about half an hour now, well, roughly. But it's all value. And so hopefully the listeners are getting value out of it and an occasional smile on their face when we talk about me lubing you up. Anyway, on that note, listeners, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate you, especially our regular ones. From all of you that play this back on the replays, welcome from the past. Whatever you're doing today, have a safe one, keep it tight, have a fucking amazing weekend, look after yourselves, and we will see you all on Monday.
See you then.